Thank you for tuning into the I'm In Network. Today's broadcast was a special commission to highlight some of the unsung heroes of the ministry, the administrators. We're going to focus on two administrators in particular, one who operates on a local church level and another who operates on a world sector scale. Let's take a look.
My name is Cindy Oakes. I've been a disciple for 25 years, and I live in San Francisco.
My name is Ryan Keenan, and I've been a disciple for 10 years now this summer, and I serve in the Ventura region of the City of Angels International Christian Church, based out of Los Angeles, California. I had a dream actually to work in sports business, work for a sports team, work for Nike. I went to the University of Oregon and I got a master's in business with a focus in sports business. I became a disciple right before I went to school in Eugene, Oregon for my master's degree. I got baptized in Portland, 2005. I moved down to Eugene a month later, had a 2-year full-time MBA program, and just with God's wisdom and knowledge, He actually set up a church in Eugene, so I was able to do well spiritually while in school, grad school. I became a full-time campus intern and administrator for the Eugene church. And so I did the books for Eugene, just overseeing all the different aspects of administration, and then just served in that capacity. Then I was able to get a call from leadership here in Los Angeles to come down and serve as a full-time administrator for Los Angeles 2009.
It's very similar to an operations manager. I do HR, I do payroll, I do accounting, I do insurance, and anything else that is necessary from an administrative perspective. So all the odds and ends, special projects, whatever it takes, that's what I do. My cat and my dog. These are my office mates. The end. Well, we are a corporation, so we have a board of directors. So from a corporate perspective, we're legally obligated to have a board. However, when it comes to ministry, administration is a part of ministry. So who leads it? It would be the ministry staff and primarily the lead evangelist. So we work very closely together. Our role in administration is to provide support to the lead evangelist, to the ministry staff, to ensure that their vision and their goals, our vision and our goals, because we're all disciples, are accomplished. So
you handle this for San Jose, and Sanville, you handle it for the East Bay.
Amen.
I mean, San Jose is at this point 20 people. It's not.
That's a great question. I look at it, number one, what comes to mind is the word partnership. That spiritual dynamic of the administrator, the evangelist working together to make decisions. Ultimately, it is the evangelist's decision and their authority to, with the final say on just everything that comes down to it. But what's interesting, if you go back to the root of administration in 1 Corinthians 12, verse 28, where Paul writes about the different gifts of presented to different people by God, and the root of administration is really like the pilot of a ship. It's the same Greek root. So in a sense, the administrator pilots the ship, working alongside the captain of the ship, the evangelist, to guide, so to speak, God's church, the ship, through the waters and navigating by faith, by righteousness, but working together in that way. So that's really how I see the dynamic working between the two roles. Much out, there's the world missions evangelist, there's the global administrator that oversees all the administration of the entire movement of churches. Then within that, as we built out the different world sectors, there's world sector administrations for that particular part of the world. Africa, South America, Europe, Northwest, United States and Canada, Northeast United States, etc. Between that, those world sector administrators oversee the respective congregational churches within that geographic territory. So for example, the Northwest US, you have the new Sacramento mission team that's planting this month, Denver, Toronto, Canada, Eugene and Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, etc. Then you have, depending again on the need and the size, you have that church administrator overseeing a team of people that helps in those different capacities.
Mark, was it the brother in your region that got the ICCM article for Sunday?
we all have, separation of duties. We rely on other members and people in other roles, like for example the ushers. We couldn't take attendance without them. We have one person who takes care of all matters related to contributions. So cool thing here in San Francisco is when we were smaller, it was a much easier task. Now we're regionalized, and so we actually have one person who coordinates all the count teams. all the contribution reporting, and then our membership statistics as well. So tracking memberships, updating the roster, all of anything related to reporting. We also partner with the ushering team. The head usher helps us with like attendance and deposits and whatever else that we need. So that's a great service. We have one person who's an approver for all of the expenses, and then another person who writes checks. And then, of course, you've got the check requester. So we have different people that do different functions to make sure that all the monies are handled appropriately. Right. So I think of this in two ways. There's a federal perspective and then there's state, right? So federally, we need to be, as a church, we're automatically a 501c3. We are exempt from paying taxes. From a state perspective, we have to fill out an application in order to be recognized, in order to get our tax exempt status. So we are officially a church. We have our articles of incorporation, and we're recognized as a nonprofit 501c3.
The hardest part for me is to say no, or not right now. And my heart is I want to get things done right away, I want to get it done that day. But we have to also take a step back and have boundaries, make sure we're doing well spiritually, we're walking well with God. Because if we're not spiritual, we're not faithful, we're not righteous, we really don't bring a lot to the table. You can do the work, but we need to have a lot of spirituality and integrity that we bring, we need to have a great walk with God. That's really the value, where we're spiritual and we have talent in administration.
As the church grows, the administrative responsibility grows. So for me, I think the hardest part is keeping up with the pace. We plant churches. So when it comes to the very beginning, the setup of a church, that can be very challenging. Because there's so many things that you need to get done. But once the church is set up, then the hardest part is keeping pace. We've got to make sure that we keep pace with payroll, we keep pace with our reporting, that we keep pace with our insurance, we keep pace with our facilities. So there are a lot of additional responsibilities as we grow. And God has blessed us with some incredible growth over the last several months, and so we definitely have been working hard in administration. Well, primarily, we use the money for our operating expenses, here for the church in San Francisco, so it goes to meet the local needs, salaries and so on. But we also do contribute to central administration in Los Angeles, which is, think of that more of like a corporate, our hub or our corporate headquarters, right? And so we give a percentage of our weekly, about 10%. And then we also give a monthly contribution to Mercy Worldwide. That's how I would group them, as operation expenses, central administration, and Mercy Worldwide. So central administration, if we had to look at this mathematically, basically we use our October average for our weekly. And then we multiply that by 4.33, and then we multiply that again by 10%. And so that's how we calculate, that's how LA calculates what we give on a monthly basis. And then we start over again in June. So we make adjustments, obviously, as we grow, our average is going to increase. So then we're able to continue to give to central administration. So central administration, the distribution is primarily for ministry travel expenses, because we're in the business of planning churches, right? And then also for our web ministry. We have web deacons in every one of the churches. And then also for some of the salaries and compensation, at the world sector level.
Yeah, the central administration is, in a sense, the movement overhead, so to speak. It's to help with cyber ministry, so USC 21, all the movement websites around the world, the legal aspects, so all the legal expenses, again with visa applications and getting visa statuses secured for perhaps international missionaries coming in to train in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago for 2-3 years, so securing those established visas and then send them back out. Just those that serve in the administrative capacity to help pay for their salaries. So again, the overhead to make sure that those who are on staff in central administration then they're taken care of with their expenses, because they're overseeing really the global administration, whether it be web, legal, visas, or just the work of administrating all the movement of churches. Yeah, Mercy Worldwide is a benevolent arm of the movement. Right now we have about 15 participating U.S. churches and one international church, London, that pays into the Mercy Worldwide account, about 3% payment based on their October 2014 contribution average. And that money goes to help support Nick and Dini Sportieri, who are full-time in Mercy. It goes to supporting supplies, the Green Mercy t-shirt, t-shirts that you see, the medical supplies to perhaps Haiti or Africa, ongoing efforts. There's International Day of Mercy every year in the summertime, so supplies for those things, and just making sure that local projects, there could be funding for that. So it's really in that global vision, and we're a family, we're sharing the resources so that we can then, the power of sharing the resources, and to make sure that there's great mercy projects being done all around the world. Yeah, those things are separate with, typically they're funded by missions. The Ignite is a great example you bring up. That was an incredible event, and what it was like a youth ministry training annual retreat every year for 2 weeks. It happened to be in San Francisco in 2015. Next year it'll be in Denver, and just an amazing situation where just a select group of teens are asked to come up, and really that's a self-funded event where with the registration fee that the teens pay, and then it just pays for everything. It pays for the 2 weeks worth of the food and the lodging and the activities and whatnot. The Global Leadership Conference, the GLC, is funded by the registration fee. So it's building out the budget, establishing a registration fee, and then that ultimately that number of how many people need to come and pay that fee to then break even on the budget and to make it a self-supporting operation. And for that, we use the missions account to get the funding going, to bankroll it. But the heart with these events, the conferences, whether it be a marriage retreat in Gainesville or a campus retreat in Denver, or if somebody wants to put on a conference or an event just locally, the heart of it is to meet the needs spiritually, make sure that you manage it in a responsible way, and that the heart isn't to lose money or to make a lot of money, but just to break even, meet the need, have an amazing retreat or an event or a conference that really helps grow spiritually, whatever the objective is, whether it be a campus, teens, married, singles, a leadership summit, those kinds of things. And so the heart of that is just to plan responsibly so that it breaks even, and then maybe a little bit then some, which is always a bonus.
Well, we have our weekly contribution, right? And all of our funding comes from the members. So, we are a self-supporting church. That's a great question. So it's when we no longer need to rely on another church in order to help us with our income. San Francisco, it took a very short period of time, but as I mentioned earlier, Chicago and Los Angeles provided us the seed money, if you will. Just a few months later, San Francisco was our membership basically supports the church.
What are some challenges that churches need to go through before they can normally be considered to be self-supporting?
It's really growth. I mean, the more members that we have that are contributing to support the church, the closer we are to being self-supporting. So when the church was planted, we had a lot of people who were very generous, and so I think the church was able to get on its feet very quickly. And then, of course, San Francisco's been blessed with a lot of growth over the past year, and so that's really helped significantly. Well, it's really exciting because when I think about San Francisco, so in terms of funding, Chicago and Los Angeles funded the San Francisco church. So what was involved? We had to pay for relocation expenses because we had people that came from different ministries. We had a lot of disciples that came from Chicago. And, a lot of disciples that go out on mission teams, they give up everything and they come here with very little. And so we paid for security deposits to get housing set up. We had to pay for facilities in order to have our first service. We had to put staff, set up our payroll so that we could have ministry on staff. Whatever it takes when you start to set up a church, you basically, do your best to fund it, and then you figure it out from there.
So number one, what's so crucial is really the bank account establishment, making sure there's a bank account set up, there's account signers, whether it be international or whether it be domestic, securing that. And then with that, if it's a U.S. church, you need a tax identification number, which then becomes, in a sense, the corporate social security number. Individuals in the U.S., they have a social security number. That's the corporation's social security number. That identifies, okay, it's a legitimate organization. They can now get payroll going. They can get a bank account set up, and they can it gets the ball rolling with that. So banking is huge. You need someone who can get a debit card, checks, be able to deposit monies, obviously the Sunday contribution, make payments on behalf of the church, getting payroll going. So just making sure that the infrastructure is set up so that the needs are met. The ministry couple, or maybe the ministry couple and the interns, they get paid, and they're just getting taken care of so they can focus on prayer, ministry, the word. And so I think that's key. And then identifying who obviously the administrative team is. We talked about the lead administrator, then the team around them, helping them do the reporting, the Sunday contribution, the different kinds of things there, writing and signing and the check process there. So those are the two key areas. And I think thirdly is just a lot of communication. A lot of times these mission teams go out, and it's easy to get caught up in the mission team, which is great. You're focusing on reaching out to people, loving the lost, bringing them in the kingdom. But I think what's key and what we're learning is that it never hurts to have too much communication and dialogue, being proactive and having weekly talks and really that accountability of what's going well, what's not going on, what do people need help with. So I think that's really the key, is that there's that great dialogue of whether it be the mission administrator on that mission team and talking with the lead administrator or the world sector administrator or even the global administrator, make sure things are going well and we don't assume anything. We just want to make sure that the teams are really set up awesome in an administrative way.
We've got to make sure that we fulfill our corporate duties. We have to make sure that we take care of payroll. Payroll is a separate part of administration, and it has all different kinds of rules and regulations. When it comes to reporting and making sure we're tracking our membership list, all of these are components of administration.
Probably not communicating, or probably assuming too much, and not getting help, assuming that they've got it down and maybe they don't. And I don't think that people have bad hearts, but a situation just where there's a forgetfulness, or one is to not report back once you have done it. So maybe they do it, they think everything's done, but it's just communication. You can never over communicate enough, and to make assumptions just kills anything. So never assume, over communicate. I think just doing a great job, having the heart to learn and to grow wherever you're at, and build a great team around you, be proactive, get help, and then just really being excellent with what God's given you, then to be able to take on more. And I think that solves probably 90% of the problems. That's a great question. Yes, certainly we need help in the legal side of things. We need help with central governance, establishing 501c3s throughout all the U.S. churches, which what that means is that's just a corporate designation as a nonprofit designation by the U.S. government. And so that just protects, so there's a tax exempt status established for each church. Also what would help is not only beyond legal, but just in just different capacities, accounting, international operations. America is just one nation out of 195 nations around the world, and so the majority of the world is other nations. And I know that's common sense, but we can get so caught up in just America, thinking American, but we need people that specifically are nationals in different nations that know how to get into that country administratively. And if we know how to do that, then we're going to be able to better and more efficiently evangelize the nations in our generation. That's really the heart. We're working together. How do we get into these? Sometimes some countries are harder to get into than others, but knowing the visa challenges, knowing how to operate, get into borders, keeping a minister there for 3 months, 6 months. How does a long-term visa situation work? So knowing the local laws of the land, and every nation is different in that capacity. So those are the two primary areas of focus in 2015 right now for us. My vision is definitely to have paid administrators all over the world, in every sector of the world, to see administrative interns. And right now there's so many that are on a volunteer basis, and it's just great-hearted disciples that serve late at night, early in the morning. They're people of integrity. They're people of responsibility. A lot of times you find they're house church leaders, they're sector leaders, Bible talk leaders, parents. They got kids. They're overseeing perhaps ushering or mercy, shepherding. So these are very, very great-hearted disciples, but they have a limited amount of time. So my immediate vision is to have more paid staff to be able to share the load, because right now with our movement of nearly 4,000 disciples around the world, we only have 3 truly full-time administrators, and we just need more help, more paid help. So I think just having the faith that there's going to be resources available to put more people on staff. And then secondly, long-term, as I mentioned before, there's the different areas of expertise that we need help in, with accounting, with legal, with visa challenges, visa opportunities, international opportunities to get into certain nations logistically, how to get an organization in there. So I think people that are specialized in those areas, we'd love to bring in and utilize the talents God gave them for the kingdom, to further the kingdom. Yeah, I like to almost jokingly call it and rename it AdmINistration, if that makes sense, where it's a facet of ministry. And you're ministering to God's church and to God's people in a great, great way in the angle of administration. So no different than ushering, shepherding, Kids Kingdom, preaching full-time. It's just a facet of that. And it's just an amazing role where you get to utilize your gifts, your talents for God's kingdom in that way. You get to help organize, you get to help work along. Like we talked about that partnership with the evangelist, working alongside in that great servant's role. So for me, it's a great opportunity just to serve, use our talents for God to help steer that ship and to help navigate God's church through choppy waters, through smooth waters, so to speak, as you help guide the sailing of the ship. And so that's what it means to me to work in that way with administration.
Yeah. Well, I definitely believe that administration is from God, that it's a gift. It's an opportunity to give back. It's a service. So I think for me, it's just a real privilege and an honor to serve in this capacity. There are days when it's really hard and I feel really stretched. But I think that's where God wants us to be. I mean, we want to evangelize the world in our generation. Feeling stretched is how we're supposed to feel. And when you feel that way in administration, it's just a reflection of what we're actually doing as disciples. We're out doing what we're supposed to do. So again, it's just a privilege and an honor. I appreciate the role, and I feel very blessed.